Hi, friends. It's me, host Eric. And today I ask the provocative question: which is more likely, aliens or ghosts? Now, Lawnmower claims to already have the answer. We'll find out. I know what the correct answer is. Okay, obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't ask the question. Actually, when you could, I suppose, are neither both are demons? That's the answer? I think the answer is aliens. I'm pretty sure. Aliens have a better logical explanation of why they exist and where they come from than ghosts do. But I've never seen either an alien or a ghost. I had some kind of paranormal-ish experiences. I've had some weird things happen. I wouldn't exactly call them paranormal, but more like people behaving strangely in ways that seems kind of weird, you know. Aliens are fallen angels and ghosts are demonic oppression. I mean, no. Aliens are creatures that live on another planet, and ghosts are the disembodied spirits of dead people. That's how we define the things. Now, whether or not you're saying those definitions are wrong. The things that we attribute to disembodied spirits of the dead are actually disembodied spirits of demons possessing the living. I mean, there's not any more reason to believe that than the other thing. They're both equally unwarranted. You know, you could say it was actually all the dead bunny rabbits coming back in spirit form to take somebody over and make them like carrots a lot. But, you know, that's not any more warranted than their dead people spirits. At least dead people spirits, you're pointing to something that you know at one point was alive, right? Grandma definitely was alive at one point. She may be dead now, but she wasn't always dead. So we can conceive of the entity grandma persisting easily enough, whether we see her in person or not. In part because that's what we do all the time. Just because my significant other has gone to work doesn't mean I behave as though she's dead until she returns. No one's dead. Somebody's dead, but I don't know who it is. Nobody I know is dead. I guess if they were, I wouldn't know them anymore. But I tell you who's definitely dead, if the ghost people are to be believed, ghosts. That's who's dead. Well, I'm always saying, no, ghosts aren't dead people. They're demons possessing living people. But, you know, that's just as much of a non-answer as they're dead people. You assume your partner's dead until she returns. Well, that's safe, and email Anthrax. That way you won't be disappointed in case she does die during the course of the day. You might call that preventative assuming. Or, you know, disappointment prevention. People who pass away do not linger. It's demons. I tend to agree that people who pass away do not linger. But, I mean, I know that there was an era in which Rachel's mental illness have been described by many people as being possessed by demons. Yet she was not cured by an exorcism. She was cured by medication, which would tend to suggest that unless the demons are allergic to that medication, then that's not demons, right? So, I mean, granted, you're not saying Rachel's mental illness is an example of demons. You're saying that ghosts are an example of demons. So the thing is, I would suggest that, you didn't say demonic possession. You said demonic oppression. My mistake. I'm sorry. You did not say that demons possess the person. You said that they're oppressing the person. Okay, well, that's at least makes a little bit more sense than possessing live people, because I don't think most people who think they sighted a ghost would be satisfied that they really saw a live person and they just thought they were a ghost. Demons are great examples of demons, even if they don't exist. They're probably the best examples you can come up with. So, okay, oppression is definitely different than possession. But you also said something about people acting like they're possessed. So I don't know what, if you were saying like person-like shapes acting like they're possessed. I don't think that most presumed ghost sightings or ghost encounters involve I was talking about someone's off behavior. What happened? What do you mean? I was saying when Rachel was mentally ill, I mean, like when she was having psychotic breaks and stuff, that there was once a time when that would have been attributed to demons, but obviously it's not demons because it was fixed by medication, not an exorcism. That's what I said. Oh, that. Yeah, well, there was some weird shit that happened around Corey, with like random people seeming to follow him, like, and I am very skeptical. Okay, I'm very skeptical. So when I say I had some pretty convincing experiences that assorted random people, not the same person ever twice, really, were following him. I mean, it's true. It was happening. I don't know why. I don't know who these people were. I have no explanation for it at all. I have some possible hypotheses. May have been a law enforcement thing, but when he first suggested this notion to him, to me that random people were following him and that they were different people all the time. Like, it wasn't like there's a person following him. I completely dismissed it as crazy. There's no fucking way. But I hung out with the guy a lot, and yeah, in cars. Like one time, there was a car following us, and he's like, "That car's following me," and I'm like, I don't think it's following you. I think it's just coincidence it's behind you. And he's like, "No, I can sort of read their body language in the car." I'm like, I don't know, dude. I mean, I agree. You're right. So far, they've turned everywhere we turned, but it's just coincidence. He's like, all right, well, I'll prove it to you. He fucking drove, making turns all over the place, speeding up. This car was speeding up, following us. It was like, yeah, there's no disputing the fact that car is following us until we lost them. I have no explanation for it. And that's not the only instance of it. The thing is, if that was the only instance of it, then I would say, okay, well, I agree with you, Corey, that somebody was following you that time, and we don't know why. But the general some sort of law enforcement thing, he was doing drugs, I guess, I don't know. It's like, I can't even, it's hard for me to even talk about it because, well, yeah, I mean, he was doing drugs and stuff, but, because it sounds so crazy. It's like, I could, even with all the evidence in front of my face, it was hard for me to believe this thing was actually happening, because why in the world and how in the world would there be this force of people that's so large that's following you that you rarely, if ever, see repeat people? It seems, it's like, what sort of organization would direct that much manpower to this issue, even if it were law enforcement? Now, I'm sure plenty of times that Corey thought people were following him after he had a couple of legitimate instances where probably his imagination ran away with him. But I know there was at least more than one instance, probably at least 3 instances that I could verify where some weird shit was going on around him. No, I'm never worried about that at all. I had the same attitude that I do now. Come and get it, motherfucker. You know, it's like I wasn't worried because I'd be perfectly happy if somebody were to come up and challenge me about something, because I would explain to them why I'm right and they're wrong. You know, I don't have anything to hide. At the time, I had stuff to hide, but I still didn't think I had anything to hide. I put up shit all over the internet about me doing meth and stuff. It's like it's kind of the same basic principle that I have now, which is I don't apologize for shit that I don't think is wrong. If I was hurting somebody or doing something bad, fine. But, you can't make me feel guilty unless I'm actually guilty of wrongdoing. So, no, I wasn't worried about it at all. That is a good question. He's fine. I mean, that was many years ago. Who knows? I don't have any explanation for it. You know, it's like the amount of stuff that I saw myself was enough to convince me there was definitely something going on, but I don't know what the extent of it was. It's like the amount of it happening, as Corey indicated, seems impossible. But then, on a few instances, I had enough verification that there was definitely something going on. So I don't know. You get calls and command posts from people who needed to report aliens. In Arkansas, the aliens took the farmer's cows, and at McDill, it was old soldiers reporting old aliens there, remember? Huh. I wonder why the aliens took the farmer's cows. Because they were so soothed by the gentle sounds of mooing? Maybe. The cows or the aliens, Lawnmower? Good question, though. All right. Well, you can tell the aliens that are Mexican because they arrived in spaceships made out of adobe. They're not the sturdiest spaceships, but, the Mexicans aren't in any hurry anyway. They're well below light speed. Ay, mañana. Es tiempo para la siesta. I mean, the thing is, I'm very ready to be convinced that aliens have visited the planet already. There's enough weird shit that's better answered by that than something else that I'm ready to be convinced. I'm not convinced, but I'm ready to be convinced. It's going to be a lot harder to convince me about ghosts, because the thing about ghosts is, like, you have all these people who go to purportedly haunted places and stand around in the dark and say things and then, like, listen to audio recordings of sounds, and you hear that? There'd be like something like in the background that happened. I think it said, "We love you, Mary." And then they said, after filtering, you can hear it more clearly. It's like, come on. You're supposed to go into the most haunted places in the world. You're spending all night in there, and that's the best you can get out of it. So, I mean, sure, ghosts might be somehow. It's like you could imagine a scenario in which all magical creatures, as part of being a magical creature, means having the capacity to avoid being captured firmly and conclusively as evidence somehow. It's like that's implicit to being magical, I guess. What's my views on poltergeists? Like ghosts that knock shit over? Is that basically what a poltergeist is defined as? Ghosts that move stuff in the physical world? No, I mean, I don't, but I don't, I'm not really in terms of paranormal stuff and alien stuff. I'm not enthusiastically a skeptic in the sense that I don't go around looking to debunk. I'm disappointedly a skeptic in the sense that I'm always hoping to be convinced. I really would like to be convinced that there's some truly spooky and crazy, interesting paranormal evidence out there or something. But I have actually researched the Amityville Horror House. I mean, it sounds to me a little bit like religious beliefs run amok and causing them to. It's like placebo effect's very powerful. So if you're convinced that you are engaging with the world on some substantial spiritual plane, and you're not TI, basically, you're not objective about things, then it's hard to say what your perceptions are. But I saw a woman on TV who took a class to see ghosts and then saw ghosts. So I said out loud to the room where I was watching TV, "No ghosts allowed here. I've never seen a ghost." The Warrens were legitimate in their investigations. Okay, well maybe I could look into it a little bit more. I haven't read a shit ton about it. I do know the basics of it. And like one of the people involved in it, that was a kid at the time or something, attributes the phenomena to the fact that his parents were into transcendental meditation, and he believes that invited demons into the house or something. First of all, I'm pretty sure there's nothing about transcendental meditation that's exclusive of Christianity. I don't know anything about the two things that are exclusive of each other. Do you? So in other words, is there anything about Christianity that precludes transcendental meditation, or anything about transcendental meditation that's incompatible with Christianity? I don't think so, but I could be wrong about that. Okay, well, even if you believe that, Lawnmower, I want you to actually answer the question I asked. Is there anything specific about transcendental meditation that you think is inconsistent with Christianity? Besides the fact that it's something other than Christianity. Not everything other than Christianity is precluded by Christianity. Jerry Seinfeld's been doing TMT since 1972. Well, Cloud, don't feel bad. I was an atheist at 15 too. The Paul, formerly known as my husband, spent the night at the Thomas House, a haunted hotel. He saw a little girl, spoke to her, and later we found out that she was the ghost. He still doesn't believe it. Yeah, Rachel and I stayed in that cool historic inn in Oregon, and we found out after the fact that it was reportedly haunted, and Rachel blames the ghost for stealing one of her headphones. Oh, no, wait, hold on, Lawnmower. You're not asking the question. You're not answering my question. Is there anything specific about transcendental meditation that is exclusive to Christianity? For example, Christ says, give Rome its due. In other words, give the civil government system its due area of authority. So clearly what you just said there is false about Christianity. It is not an exclusive closed system, and it does not dismiss anything not founded in Christ as foreign or necessarily resulting in opening a spiritual doors to demons. There are lots of things in life that do not comprise spiritual endeavors. There's no reason to conclude that transcendental meditation does comprise a spiritual endeavor. In fact, if you're a Christian, it would seem to me almost blasphemous to suggest that it does. It's like you're giving wrongness way too much credit, right? Soul of a dead person thought of as living in an unseen world or as appearing to living people a very small amount or trace. Yes, aliens uploaded in the cyberverse are ghosts. The Hanver religion is the only of the world's great faiths dedicated to the idea that the cosmos itself undergoes an immense, indeed, an infinite number of deaths and rebirths. Remember, though, it's important to remember this, that Hinduism may have embraced the idea of death and rebirth, but their concept of the cosmos was very different than ours. So to say that they believe that the cosmos itself undergoes immense death and rebirth is to say something different than if I were to say it, because they didn't conceive of the cosmos as being what it is. They didn't conceive of the Big Bang or any of that sort of stuff. You're sort of making a metaphorical leap there. My neighbor was a former Hollywood dancer who believed in ghosts. She told me to keep the palms of my hand under pillows so the ghost wouldn't steal my soul. It's not that easy to steal a soul. I mean, if it were that easy to steal a soul, then nobody would have their soul left. Assuming there was a market for souls. Assuming the idea that ghosts going to steal your soul. First of all, a ghost already has a soul, their own soul. That's why they're a ghost. Why do they want yours? What are they going to do with it? Is soul thread a good material to make clothes out of for the afterlife? Eric, have you heard about how many people who have experienced alien abductions whilst being unable to move and surrounded by those grays they called in the name of Jesus and were freed? Okay, so one more. Tell me this. What percentage of alien abduction stories involve the abductee calling out the name of Jesus? And in how many of those does it not work? In other words, are there any people who say, I did call the name of Jesus and it didn't work? Okay. If there's a lot of people who didn't call it the name of Jesus and it didn't work, and some people who report that they did call it and it did work, we can't conclude anything. Now, you might say there'd be reason to conclude that there's merit in that if you have people who called it out and it didn't work, because then you'd have reason to believe that, in fact, this is something that people do when abducted by aliens, and we can actually collect data and see if there's a correlation between calling out the name of Jesus and getting free from your alien abduction. But since we don't even agree that these alien abductions actually occurred, we'd be more well served if we discovered that some people report testing this thing out and not getting the result that you claim. Bracha Goldsmith has a YouTube channel, and she channels the Pleiadians to tell us of their messages. She's a character. She channeled alien spirits? So I guess really maybe the best explanation for the paranormal experiences we all go through every day is neither ghosts nor aliens, but rather alien ghosts. Well, of course. I mean, the thing is, people who report alien abductions being interested in New Age ideology and the occult suggests we ought to be skeptical of their reports, not that New Age ideology and the occult lead to being abducted by aliens. If they're interested in New Age ideology and the occult, then we have to be skeptical of their objectivity regarding describing events. Wait, hold on a second, Cloud. You just told me they limited the age of the universe to 8.64 billion. Or the cycle. You just said they limited the cycle's age. So, they must have limited some things then, huh? Hindu's compatible with evolution? It's wrong then, right? I mean, being compatible with a wrong idea doesn't necessarily mean. Yeah, it would mean it was wrong. But if it's compatible with evolution, in other words, if it acknowledges that species aren't set identities, but rather a genome is a process undergoing change, then, you know. I think I read that the ISFJs love to talk about ghosts. My sister-in-law is an ISFJ, and she really likes talking seances, ghosts, Ouija, all that stuff. Well, I mean, I suspect that has to do somewhat with the individual SFJ. I tend to find SFJs and STJs not very mystical at all. Just not very spiritual. It's because of their particularist knowledge. They trust their own experience to tell them what is and what is not. But of course, the weaker TI means they are susceptible to buying into that stuff occasionally. Bye, email anthrax. Have a pleasant day in Canada. Don't forget to eat plenty of Canadian cheese. It's made out of moose milk. Well, then it would sound like you know your course currently, Cloud. Your current course of action then should be, I need to determine which party is correct between those who argue in favor that Hinduism is pro-evolution and those who argue that no, Hinduism is anti-evolution. If you want to make progress and you're thinking it all, then you're at the point now where you need to determine which of those two sides' argument is correct and which is incorrect. Because they are exclusive. Either it's consistent with evolution, the ideas of Hinduism are consistent with evolution, or they're non-related, non-relevant, or they're inconsistent. You can't have both. Right. Evolution is obvious to everyone with common sense. Those of us with uncommon sense know better. It takes an uncommonly sensible person to not be bamboozled by broad consensus, including broad consensus of a lot of people wearing sciencey lab coats. I don't know. Neither do you. The difference is between us is that you're claiming you do. false dichotomy. It's not true that there are only two possible explanations. Life on Earth either happened by itself or someone created it. I mean, for example, there could be no life on Earth. It could all be simulated and we not actually be alive, just digital representations of ourselves. That's just one alternate explanation. There's plenty more. For example, life could have always existed. This could be a pre-existence dream. Okay, well, I'm not disputing that it would be created. I'm disputing that it would be life that was created. You said life. Life on Earth either happened by yourself or someone created it. So I can dispute your point by focusing on the created verb or focusing on the life part. I'm focusing on the life part. Well, I mean, the whole idea of accidental presumes purpose. So it's not possible for a non-willful agent to do something by accident or purpose. That's a category error. The idea that everything must be either accidental or purposeful is the same thing as saying everything must be purposeful, that there is always a purpose frame. And I would tend to agree with that. There is always a purpose frame. My point isn't that there's not always a purpose frame. It's that you don't know what that is, and you're claiming you do. One way or the other. You don't even know enough to limit possible explanations, and you're claiming you do. I'm not claiming to have an alternate explanation. And I did present you a couple of other possible things. For example, a pre-existence dream, a post-existence memory. Very vivid and realistic. We're all ghosts. We're all demons. We're all aliens. I don't know. I mean, that we neither evolved nor were created, but we're a freak, massive mutation instead of just a gradual gathering of small mutations. One mutation, a dinosaur gave birth to a human. There you go. Another explanation. Neither evolutionary nor created. Now, it would be accidental, I would agree, in the sense that it wasn't willfully done. But even then, the point is, it's done by an agent capable of willful decision making. Otherwise, accidental wouldn't even be on the table. It's a possibility. No, I'm not materialistic in my worldview, Cloud. It's like if you're gonna throw random terms around, try to learn what they mean, for God's sakes. It's like calling me short, fat, and female. You're not understanding what words mean clearly. I'm neither short, nor fat, nor female. It can't exist as a pre-existential dream because the argument is self-contradictory. I need a pedantic man, superhero uniform. Okay, let me modify it. It could exist as a pre-biological existence dream. In other words, that our consciousness exists before our biology. And again, clouded life. Now, I don't agree with that. I don't think, in fact, consciousness can exist without biology. But it's a possible alternate explanation. The point being that, regardless, I don't need alternate explanations to point out that neither of Cloud's explanations are adequate. Well, I mean, what's so obvious about it? I mean, I think the opposite of evolution is so obvious. Thanks. Thanks, pedantic man. What would we do without pedantic man's solipsism? Do you think consciousness is emergent from neuronal computation? I mean, I think consciousness and agency, consciousness and life are mutually supervenatory, which is to say, you can't have one without the other. And it's subject to the sort of the chicken and egg question. The important thing to remember about the chicken and egg question is all we have to do is imagine ourselves asking the question about a computer generated loop of some sort. Like, for example, when I first had my Apple IIe computer, Apple II, then I got an Apple IIe, I learned to code very basic old school coding where it'd be like 10, print, and then your name, 20, go to 10. And then it would go forever. Now, you could say that each of those Erics gives birth to the next Eric. And at that point, you reasonably ask, well, which came first, the mother Eric or the child Eric? Of course, the answer to that is that's not how that works. An agent initiated a loop. And which came first? Well, the first instance of the loop. Hi, Zach. So, okay, lawnmower. Here's a basic thing. I want to ask you this. Can you name a single woman that's alive right now who was made out of male ribs? God, this chick's bony. Well, what do you expect? I made her entirely out of male ribs. She's not alive anymore. I said you name one woman who's alive right now who's made entirely out of male ribs. I can't think of a single one. Eric, do you think that everything you call soul is a sum total of your biological processes with electrical impulses that die along with the body? Well, my answer to that is a conservation of energy would seem to suggest that there's something beyond that happening. It's like, one minute you're alive and there's energy there that that is gone when death occurs. Now, you could say, well, it's the same sort of thing as when fuel is used up in a car. Like, the fact that you run out of gas and the car stops doesn't mean you violated the principle of conservation of energy. That's a good enough point to make. But the thing is, people don't die because they run out of fuel. You know what I'm saying? So panpsychism sort of solves that problem, saying that consciousness is a fundamental property of matter. Well, I don't agree with that. I think it's a fundamental property of agency. And there's a difference between agents and non-agents. It's like, I don't know if you watched the video I put up a little while ago about responding to those comments. It's like anytime anybody tries to play the everything is meow card, they've gone down at least one wrong path. So, for example, the guy who was arguing against my stance on principalism was saying principalism is always pragmatic, that it's always the case if we were to factor in all the impacts, that the utilitarian indication would be the same as the principled indication. But of course, that's not true because different people consider different impacts relevant. And it will always be the case that it can be in some parties' interests and in some parties' disinterest for a given action to be taken. So it's not the case that you can say everything is principalism and we can dismiss pragmatism as always subsumed by principalism and never contradicting it. That's just not the case. So it's like, and this happens all the time. There's something about language that seems to lead people towards these inappropriately totalizing frames. Everything is physical. Like, I had this argument with that ENTP, the first ENTP I debated, where it's a lot of yelling because he went down a wrong path where then he found himself arguing that everything was physical and that nothing was metaphysical. And of course, he couldn't sustain that argument because it's bullshit. And it's because he was trying to get around shit instead of being honest. Am I using a green screen? I have a green screen back here, but it's not being used currently in the sense that I don't have the camera filter on. I'm not using the software. I'm just using the webcam live streaming. So YouTube lets you have two different ways to live stream. You could webcam live stream, which just, you don't have to use any software, or you could use the software, in which case you put on the filter and you see shit on the green screen. But this way you can't do it. Is that the same Corey? Oh no, that's not my friend Corey. No, my friend Corey doesn't spell his name either of those ways, actually. So yeah, I have a friend named Corey that I talk about quite a bit, Corey Gordon. He's not you, but he's an INFJ friend of mine that has had a big role in influencing some of my thinking, and we've kind of had a falling out. I haven't seen him in a while. Last time I saw him, we went to a Pixies concert together at the Rose Bowl. No, my friend's name is not Corey Gordon. Okay, your name is Corey Gordon. My friend's name is not Corey Gordon. It's Corey something else. I don't want to say what his full name is, but and he doesn't spell it Korry or Corry or Corey, believe it or not. So that's fine, Corey Gordon. Corey Gordon, your name has a lot of ors in it. 2 specifically. Hades? No, it's not Corey either. No, not Corry. It's Chohry. It's short for Coron. Oddly. Is everybody's name Corey short for Coron? I don't think so. Yeah, he has an H in it. Your name's also Corey? Is it short for Coron? And yours too, Corey Gordon? Short for Coron? I don't know. Oh, interesting. Who knew? I didn't know that was commonly that the real name is Coron. You never hear anybody call themselves Coron. Everybody who's named Coron calls themselves Corey. Yeah. All we need are those famous Corys from the 1980s acting teenage movies. Corey, what were the 2 Corys? Corey Haim or Haynes or something like that. And what was the other Corey? Feldman, thank you. Does any tool manifest as going, well, what about this and what about that and what about this ad infinitum? Yes, it does. It does. Okay, so let's take a vote. Who prefers Corey Haim? Raise your left hand. Who prefers Corey Feldman? Raise your right hand. Who, to be honest, doesn't really know the difference? Raise both hands. I don't really know the difference. I'm sure I could, if I saw them both, I'd say, oh yeah, I recognize those 2 Corys. But I can't think of which one's which or what they did or anything really. I saw a VOD. You mentioned forethought as a grip function, but it's the first time I heard you say that, and it wasn't really defined that big. Can you direct me to a bit? Or, I don't. I'm not really a big believer in being in the grip of something. People talk about being in the grip of your fourth function specifically because I think it's because retreating to your fourth function is a natural sort of instinctual response to striking trauma of some sort. For example, when my dog died, I went into SI mode for like a solid week, cleaning the house, nesting, and trying to make myself feel better with snacks and blankets and hot cocoa and stuff, you know. Haim is dead now? What did he die of? Excessive coriness? Somebody else died recently. Oh, Eddie Van Halen. Eddie Van Halen died too recently. I falsely reported, by the way, the other day that he had gone to Arcadia High School. That was my bad. It was not Eddie Van Halen. It was Mark Anthony, the bassist. So just I'm issuing this formal correction. If you took it to the bank that Eddie Van Halen had gone to the same high school I had gone to, but 10 to 12 years or 15 or 20 years, however long earlier than me, well, I misled you. It was really Mark Anthony, the bassist. It was not Eddie Van Halen. I'm so sorry. If you've gone and told a whole bunch of people already that Eddie Van Halen went to Arcadia High School, you can blame me when you correct yourself to them. Well, I think the thing is this, Lawnmower, about children in Hollywood is the biggest problem is how being famous at a young age is going to impact their ontological development. Some of them, no doubt, are in fact abused, but I would suggest strongly that the vast majority of children who work in Hollywood are not subject to abuse. But nevertheless, a lot of them who aren't subject to abuse turn out all fucked up anyway because they don't get a chance to grow up as normal people, understanding their fundamental equivalency to others. They're thrust into this position of being more important than other people at too young of an age, and it messes them up. Is there a third option, Morridge? When presented with this dilemma, whom should I believe, Lawnmower or Cloud? I would suggest always go, aha! I'll believe Eric instead. Every popular movie, every star with 100 million followers, everything is manufactured by Satanists. Everything? Surely not everything. My last public speech for this class was this Saturday. Got any advice? I'm trying to convince people to donate to a charity. All right, well, I would suggest you use a line that I'm recommending. I stole this from Ira Black, host of Wait, Don't Tell Me. And he said, when trying to convince people to donate to public radio, he said, be idealistic. So often in this world, there's there's so little that we can trust that we can give to, and have faith that everybody involved is well intentioned, and that you're going to seriously accomplish the good you hope to accomplish with your gift. But there are still things worthy of your idealism, and this is one of them. And I think we're all better off when we allow our idealistic selves to come out now and again. That's pretty good stuff, huh? When I heard that, it didn't make me give them any money, but it made me go, wow, that's the best sales pitch I've ever heard for these public radio things. Winston's mom. Oh, you just said a sentence that caused me a great deal of pain. Winston's mom just said that Paula Poundstone is pretty funny. I got images of Paula Poundstone in my head. Every single thing about Paula Poundstone is in a set here, okay? Every single thing about funny is in a set over here. And never the twain shall meet. Well, Winston's mom, I have my little things. You've never hit on this particular one before. You know how I got the Dave Matthews Band, I got Bill Walton. It'd never come up before, but Paula Poundstone is actually not quite in that group, but up there. There's just something about her as soon as she stands on stage and I see her, the ridiculous clothes that she's wearing, and I just go like, get off of that stage! You have no business being up there. You are not funny. I feel that way about Carrot Top too. But I feel sad about Carrot Top because Carrot Top doesn't believe in himself at all. Carrot Top is insecure and trying too hard and making all kinds of mistakes, like getting all super buff even though he's a comedian. Like, how does those two things go together? So I kind of feel sad for Carrot Top. I don't feel sad for Paul Poundstone because she clearly thinks she's funny. Poor Carrot Top is stuck doing this horrible shtick in Vegas, and he knows he sucks ass. Sean O'Neill, I hate to do this after all of my pro-misogyny things, but by and large, I agree with you that women comedians as a group, they're just not as good by and large as male comedians. However, there are some exceptions. Amy Sedaris is an absolute genius. Lawnmower, remember, when Cloud speaks, he just pours out his word bag, and whatever happens to land on the table there is what he says. So it's just there to provoke you. Don't take the bait. Well, mostly they're neither comedians nor comedians, but rather cringe-making nightmares. But that's true of all comedians, most of them. It's like, by and large, every comedian is a terrible cringe-making nightmare. And then there's an occasional, very rare exception, somebody who's actually really funny. Amy Sedaris is another female comedian who's brilliant. I don't know if I agree with your things that you say there, but I definitely agree that Amy Sedaris is absolutely brilliant. And I really like Amy Poehler too. The other Amy. My sisters agree with your explanation too. What's your explanation? I can explain though. I asked and did research and everything. So what's your explanation? Um, they don't bring the world to the audience. With some observed thing. I mean, some of them do. I guess that was Ellen's whole shtick, was observing things. She was never very funny, of course. They bring the audience. So you're saying they're too particularist? Okay, I mean, I think that that's a fair critique of bad humor in general. That if it's too particularist, it's going to not really work that well. But I'm not sure if that's the case about female comedians or not. I mean, again, I want to stress, it's not like I can name many male comedians I like either. Comedy's the hardest art, and the reason is because it's like normally some kind of arts, you do them and you get credit for right answers, and you just get wrong answers wrong, you know. Whereas some kinds of art, you get credit for right answers and minus credit for wrong answers. Comedy is the most like that of any art form. That you know, you can have a great set, you tell one bad joke that makes people cringe, and it'll ruin the whole experience. For me, anyway, as an audience member, I need you to be perfect in comedy. And you don't have to be perfectly hilarious, but you have to be perfect in terms of never failing. You can succeed lightly or you can succeed more, but you can't ever fail, because then it's like coitus interruptus. It just ruins the mood. I mean, the thing is, I'll say this, Louis the 17th. I don't like comedy that links too strongly, as Sean was suggesting, to personal identity. So let's say you're a large woman and your shtick is you get up there and make fat jokes because that's your way of sort of recapturing the discourse. That's not going to work. Won't work. Won't be funny. It's guaranteed to fail. If you get up there and you're African American, you make black jokes, won't work. Won't be funny. Guaranteed to fail, because it's too much of a link to particularism. And it's too much, in an ideal comedy thing, the comedian is almost sitting in the audience with the audience, enjoying the thing being presented by the mist of the comedian up on the stage. It's really almost like why, when it's done right. Like when Dave Chappelle was at his peak and he'd come on stage, people would start laughing before he even said anything. And why? Because he had this laughing eyes thing. Like something hilarious is going on, and he's gonna let us all in on it. You know, he's part of the audience in that regard. I've never attempted stand-up comedy. I would like to. Winston's mom. It makes me so sad to know that such a wonderful person like you consumes such horrible media. Kevin Hart is not funny at all. You're not talking about C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis wrote the Chronicles of Narnia. Okay? You're definitely not talking about C.S. Lewis. I think you're talking about Louis C.K. I don't particularly like Conan O'Brien, but I probably, last time I talked about him, spoke more harshly about him than I actually feel. I really feel like Conan was asked to do more than his chops could support, is what it boils down to. He could be funny and stuff, but he was not allowed to grow into a proper comedian. He was pushed ahead too fast. Exactly. He tries too hard, and his career took all the fun out of it for him, and you can tell. I think he was a better comedy writer than he is a comedian. When you watch host Eric, your mind gets altered. YouTube is rewiring. No, YouTube's not rewiring your brain. I am, Cloud. And Don Knotts is kind of funny. I have a lot of respect for Don Knotts, even if I wouldn't say that he makes me laugh a great deal. I definitely respect him. Right, but the thing is, Cloud, to rewire somebody's brain meaningfully requires their brain to be challenged with new things. And most of the time, as you're listening to shit on YouTube or whatever, at least my experience is most of the time I'm listening to stuff, I only learn about things on YouTube that are totally not in my wheelhouse. Like, I'll learn how to fix the fridge or something or whatever, like TE stuff. But I've not found YouTube to be remotely useful as a research tool for meaningful ideation, except for my own channel, frankly, and a couple maybe videos here and there, like a couple David Berlinski videos or something. But yeah, I do. Possibly an INTP, but probably an ENTP. In seventh grade, you thought Dana Carvey was the funniest guy ever. That did not age well. I mean, in general, comedy doesn't age well. And comedy that does age well is a remarkable achievement. It's like whoever came up with that thing is brilliant, because comedy's not meant to age well. It relies on being surprising and novel. Familiarity ruins it. So I would say that for example, Rachel and I watched this Abbott and Costello movie a while back, and there was a couple pretty funny things in it. I enjoyed the silver or what thing. That to me seemed quite funny, where one of the characters says to Abbott, I guess, says to Abbott, "Oh yeah, this is the result of the silver ore." Silver or what? No, the ore is smelted by a, I don't know. I don't remember the whole thing, but it was quite funny, quite well written, and it totally stood the test of time, just based on its cleverness, and it was also well acted, like well timed. The two people doing it were good at their job. I saw Penn and the Silent One in Vegas, and they weren't that entertaining, but they seemed nice. I definitely, I'm going to revisit my previous answer. Yes, Penn's an ENTP. I'm quite certain of it. You know what you should have gone to see while you were in Vegas, Louis the 17th? You should have gone to see The Thunder from Down Under. It's a great show about Australian hunky males. I think the thunder is in their pants. I've not been to the show, but I've heard great things about it from all my Australian friends. When Rachel and I were in Vegas, they had a couple of like sometimes in the casinos they'll have like a table where they're promoting a show, right? At this table they had a couple of shirtless guys, and like you could go and take pictures with them if you wanted to, and buy tickets to their show there. But we didn't take pictures with them. We went outside, and I ended up taking a picture of Rachel next to a picture of one of them outside. So anyway, yeah, I'm streaming. You aren't dreaming. I'm really streaming. That's why you're beaming like the sun. So my client's mom called me again tonight. I had another one of these kind of ridiculous conversations that I keep having with her. She, being an ESTJ, can't get the handle on the NI at all. She keeps calling to basically talk out with me this problem she's having with her son's private school. And she calls me like every other day to just basically just like vent about her struggles with the school. And right now, particularly about the debate situation. So the thing that she wants, or she should want, or we want, or whatever you want to say, is for Jeffrey to be able to compete on the poly team in LD. Now, he also wants to compete at more tournaments than poly competes at, because poly is not a very good debate program, frankly. They don't take it seriously like Harvard Westlake does, even though they purport to be of equivalent caliber school. So the coach wants him to do parley. And so there's this difficulty here, basically, which is it's kind of a new coach. He's probably feeling insecure. And the fundamental gist of the problem here is that Jeffrey's actual coach, me, is way better than his school coach and is asking to compete on the team, but not have to be limited by the coach's low ability and choice of a weak debate format. Because parley is like baby debate, you know? And policy's not, they have policy, but he's not any good as a policy coach. So their policy teams suck ass and they can't beat anybody. So, that's challenging from the mom's perspective, because she's trying so hard not to offend anybody and not to piss anybody off. Well, that's playing not to lose rather than to win. I feel sick all of a sudden. Well, I mean, presumably Harvard Westlake and poly are about equivalent. But regardless, they're not going to Harvard Westlake because it's all the way across town. They bought a house when their kids were little, right across the street from poly. So they said, we are going to send our kids to this particular very famous, hard to get into private school. And we're so committed to this that we are going to buy a house right across the street from it. When did I eat something last? Dinner. It's quite a while ago. It was about 6:00. Although I did have a shit ton of food. I ate a whole big thing of Panda Express. My dad got us panda tonight, which is nice. I should probably have it in Uncrustables or a little bit of leftover rice that I have or something like that. Do I have COVID? No, I don't have COVID. Yeah, well, this is what I always get at Panda. This is a stock Panda Express order. If you know anything on Panda Express, you get the 2-item plate with orange chicken, broccoli beef, half and half on the rice, fried rice half, and those noodles, chow mein half. That's the proper way to order food at Panda Express. Which program is a better fit for Jeffrey's personality? Harvard Westlake, for sure. But like I said, they've got legitimate sunk costs. First of all, I wouldn't want to live over where Harvard Westlake is in the West Side. It's just so crowded. Second of all, they'd have to move both their kids, and their daughter seems to be a good fit for Paulie. I suspect Harvard Westlake is a little bit more run by intuitives, and Paulie's run more by sensors. Then the other school that's over kind of near Harvard Westlake is Marlboro. So if they were going to commit to such a huge decision, then I would recommend to them that they try to get Jeffrey into Harvard Westlake and Chloe into Marlboro. Marlboro's all girls, so Jeffrey couldn't go there. But Marlboro is maybe the best school of them all, of all three of them. Marlboro is a rad school. I've gone to a couple tournaments there, and boy, is that place swanky. They had the best food layout and shit for us, for all the debaters, all the coaches, all the parents, anybody who showed up. They had this huge spread of muffins, croissants, like every kind of pastry, fresh fruit, different juices. And then they clean it all up after the breakfast hour or so. And then they come back out and they had caterers, And they come and they put out all the lunch. And it would be like taco truck. They had carne asada, lingua, what's that shit called? The pork one. I forget what it's called. I mean, I don't know if they're pretty girls or not. It's a girl school. It's middle school and high school. And, well, I mean, I think if you have a daughter, there are certain advantages to sending her to a girls' school. I think there are just, in general, fewer disruptions when you don't have boys around. Like, boys tend to be a little bit more disruptive. But I don't know. My daughter would never have tolerated going to an all-girls school. She would not have tolerated it for 1 second. So, I mean, I think their kids were not raised to expect to have so much of a role in decision making about their own lives. But that's all I was. But nevertheless. So, park that big Mack truck in this little garage. Go ahead. It'll fit. Just gotta cram it in there. Where's the other weed? Oh, there it is. I'm sorry, Kitty. I'm not going to step on you. Don't worry. I'm just coming near you. I do not want to play in and out, Kitty, all night. You just came in. In or out? Okay, you're staying in. You've lost your opportunity to leave. You snooze, you lose, Kitty. That's what they say in the snoozing and losing school. If you snooze, you lose. Well, I have snossed and I have lost. That, I believe, is a Dr. Seuss quote. It's a quote from somebody. I didn't make it up. I did make up the French language, though, if you weren't aware of that. Prior to which, people living in France spoke in a conglomeration of grunts and whistles. No, Katie has her spots already. Like there's the green chair, which she loves to sit, which even has her pillow on it already. But where she tends to sit most, is there's like a little shelf. This couch folds down into a bed. Yeah, So there's a little shelf back here, and she likes to sleep on it. And so I've had to. I realized that, and fortunately, as soon as I saw that she was sleeping there, I now, every time I put down the bed, I'm careful to look to make sure she's not sleeping back there so I don't squish her. What are 3 of the best 80s movies? Good question. Well, I've been seeing some 80s movies lately. I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark recently. I saw Romancing the Stone recently. That's an 80s movie. I saw Ferris Bueller's Day Off recently. That's an 80s movie. I mean, I have to say Empire Strikes Back is one of them for sure. That's, I believe, 1980 or 81. And yeah, I'd seen it before. I was surprised that I saw it again for the first time in a while. It's a pretty slow movie. It's got the pacing of its era. It's, in some ways, that's nice. It's like it doesn't rush. It allows the actors to be expressive and for them to develop scenes more thoroughly. But as people get better and better and better at making art, we always see the bar raised higher. Now, granted, if you nail it perfectly, then you have a classic that never ceases to be good. And so there are some old movies that qualify, but they're less common than newer movies. This is partially because more movies are being made, but more it's because people understand how to make art better than they used to. Bryan Singer. Who's Bryan Singer? Besides Cloud's Boy Lover. You're Wolverine, Cloud? Congratulations. So, okay, I've named Empire Strikes Back as one of the best movies of the 80s. Now you pick 2 more choices. I'm going to actually look up 80s movies so I can get some kind of a list. '80s movies. Oh, well, I might actually put Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey on there, a surprisingly excellent sequel to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. You have to be a little patient for the very beginning of it, but then it gets pretty funny. Beetlejuice was quite good. Back to the Future, excellent film. I mean, you gotta love the Goonies. But yeah, okay. I'm gonna make my second edition for sure. First one on my list of 3 is Empire Strikes Back. Second one is Princess Bride. I love that movie. That movie is fantastic. And the third one, I might have to go for the third one, Karate Kid. I'm going to say Karate Kid, Princess Bride, and Empire Strikes Back. Justin Salisbury, you're asking some tough, well-phrased questions there. Blade Runner, it was a great movie. The thing about Blade Runner is it's a fairly serious movie and kind of a little depressing, maybe. But I plan to rewatch it relatively soon. Karate Kid's fantastic. I think it's a fantastic movie. I rewatched it shortly before beginning to watch Cobra Kai, which, if you haven't seen it, it started out as a YouTube original. It's moved now to Netflix, but they still haven't released third season. That's fantastic, man. I really enjoyed that show. But I would say that the single best thing I've ever seen, as far as the television show goes, is BoJack Horseman. It's the smartest, deepest, funniest show I've ever seen. It does it all. It accomplishes everything. It's a pretty good comeback, Lawnmower. Not bad. It's true, probably, that he's really trying to flex his words with his pretty articulation. It's also true, however, that his articulation was, in fact, pretty. And when he flexed, he did look pretty cut. Your favorite, Sean O'Neill, you have got to be shitting me. There's no way in hell you actually have your favorite 80s movies be Crocodile Dundee 2 and Uncle Buck. What, an Ernest Goes to Camp? Crocodile Dundee 2? I mean, seriously, not even Crocodile Dundee 1? I tell you what's not a good movie, Karate Kid 3. I haven't even seen it in like 30 years and I still remember it was a bad movie. You sound like Princess Caroline from BoJack Horseman. The only movie she had as a kid was the Amelia Earhart story on VHS tape. And she's from quote unquote hillbilly country. Although I don't think she's from Kentucky in the show. Does someone who's in love have faith, or does he know that he's in love? I think you would know the answer to that question better than I would, Cloud. I mean, I believe myself in love with Rachel, but I have no way to know if that's correct or not, really. Because like the feelings I have, the actual feelings are periodic and pleasant, but I mean, I don't know what feelings equal being in love per se. Uh, I know I love my daughter, but it seems odd that like I don't very often seek to spend time with her or anything. In fact, one of the things I love about her is that she and I have the same expectations for each other, which is I expect you to respond and be down for whatever when I need you, and to otherwise expect nothing of me. And we both are down for that, you know. It works beautifully. It's like we both get each other. We're both FI polar, and so we never prioritize FI concerns with each other. We always prioritize both preserving our autonomy and FE. Your cunning linguistics. You know what would have even been better there, Dustin Salzberg? And I hate to do this to you. I hate to pull a Mozart on your Solieri. It would have been great if you said, it's unfortunately my snappy diction hasn't validated my position. I think snappy diction would have really been a little bit more snappy. The problem with cunning linguistics is it immediately elicits thoughts of cunnilinguists. Cunnilinguists. Or how do you say that word again? All of a sudden I've lost the mind of it. What crowd did I hang out with? I guess you could generally call them the Bohemians. Group of friends. Roger, one of the people, called us the Jungle Clowns. I'm not sure why he called us that. I think it was sort of a joke about gang names or something. But it was a fairly large group of people, mostly dudes. There were some chicks in the group, but we weren't really the only one amongst my group of friends who was slaying at all, or even considered themselves like who the only one of us who wasn't neurotic about chicks, put it that way, was Leaf. And he had a girlfriend. In fact, his first girlfriend in high school is Cameron's current girlfriend. Isn't that funny? Isn't that weird? Kara. It was Leaf's first girlfriend in high school. And he had a girlfriend before any of the rest of us did by several years, He was like, he's a censor, and he's probably ESFJ. And like Roger's probably an ENFJ. I knew Cameron in high school, but I knew him as Bailey's younger brother that we didn't really hang out with. Like Bailey was in our group, but Cameron was 2 or 3 years younger than Bailey. And Bailey was an intuitive. It was basically a group of intuitives. There weren't very many of us around the high school, and we sort of gravitated to each other. But there were, like I said, there was Leaf in the group too, and he was a censor. But he's a censor who played the bass. And it's funny, no matter how good he got at the bass, he always had the same problem. Total lack of NI. Too much NE and too many notes, And Roger also played the bass, and other people played musical instruments. We had that in common, or were writers, thought themselves writers. I was a writer on the high school newspaper, and in high school I was already wanting to write fiction and other stuff, and already beating myself up about not doing it. So that was already happening in high school. But and it's still happening to this day. Isn't that wonderful? No, I actually wasn't I only played the harmonica in high school. It was the only instrument I knew how to play. And so what ended up happening there is I was always kind of on the outside looking in within the group musically. It took a long time for people to accept that I had any legitimacy in the area, because I didn't start playing the guitar till I was 21. But I still hung out with the same group of people all the way through my 20s. I mean, still now, in theory, I could say, Roger, hey, listen, I'm having a party at my house on whatever day, and I want to get the Jungle Clowns together. I'm sure we could get Leaf here and Roger, Corey. Probably couldn't get any of the girls. Probably couldn't get Bailey. What's her name? Camille Goss. She lives in Northern California. My ex-girlfriend, Chris Lee, she lives in Northern California. Laura Levin we could get. She's down here in LA. Well, I guess I didn't do that. I didn't sing over people playing the guitar or something. It's kind of like if somebody's playing the guitar, then they're probably singing, and I may or may not know the words. If I know the words, then I'd be singing along. But if I'm singing along, then it's probably a context where lots of people are singing along. So, I don't think singing was considered amongst us as a musical instrument. And that was wrong of us, but I think I just went with that, basically. Even though I had been in boys' choir, so I should have known better. But anyway, when I did start learning the guitar and started playing guitar, and I got in a band, Dave Porter and Paul Porter and I were definitely all on the outside looking in to the better musicians, which included Corey and Brian Moran and Leaf and Roger. Anyway, but Paul got very good on the drums, and I got a lot better on the guitar pretty quickly. Of course, the problem was Dave was not a good singer, and he was a singer in the band. He was the worst singer. Well, he was definitely a much worse singer than I was, and he was pretty pitchy. So that kind of gave us a low ceiling as a band, and also the approach toward it, which, at that time I was much more interested in being egalitarian than I was in being having an artistic vision. So, I'd always side with FE over NI, and that was fine. That was just a period of my artistic growth. It was before I started really hanging out and making music with Corey, which changed the way I did art. MC McPhee is here. MC Fee. Why do I put an extra thing in there? I don't know why I do that. You're not MC McPhee, although it seems like it should be that. Like your mouth wants to say that, A Scots Welcome. A Scots Welcome sounds like the name for a particularly filthy sex act. And then I gave her a Scots Welcome. What's that? Well, it's when you take her down to the moors and she stands on her head with her legs spread like this, and then you poop on her face. Oh, a Scots Welcome. Right. A Scots Welcome is a headbutt to the nose. Wow. Remind me not to go visit any Scottish people. Bienvenidos. Bienvenidos means welcome in Spanish. So right there, I appreciate Cloud highlighting another confirming evidence that Steve Jobs is an ISTP and definitely not an intuitive. If Steve Jobs thinks he's the most important thing he ever did, definitely not an intuitive. That's a Glasgow kiss. And Glasgow, I believe, is in Scotland. So that's very very consistent with Martinel's assessment of matters. It was a tradition started back in the atrocity known as the Highland Clearances. The reason is because like the first half of the clearances were all accomplished by English people fooling the Scots. They say, "Oh no, I just want you to come over here. Just walk right over here. I just want to show you some beautiful treasure for you to take home." And then they'd come around the corner and pow. So that's when they developed this habit of headbutting everybody they meet. First they do a headbutt, then they do a reach around, then they do what's called a Moorish woggle. The way he spoke about his calligraphy class made me think he is strong SI, Steve Jobs. I mean, interesting that you think about calligraphy as an SI thing, or maybe not though. You say the way he spoke about it. So you're saying that he talked about enjoying the repetitiveness of it, or the familiarity. That it linked to lots of memories, or what? Okay, which mythical thing is most likely? Aliens, ghosts, or Scottish people? I'm going aliens. Like he felt so much beauty in it, he had to make the Apple beautiful characters on screen. That's not an SI thing. That's more of an NI thing. An SI thing would be like, it just every time I do this, it just makes me relax. It brings me back to the time when I was a little kid and my mom and I used to do calligraphy together. We sit there, and so now when I do it, it's just so familiar and comfortable to me. That would be an SI reason. Oh, Scots are aliens. Well, that would explain it then. I thought there were 3 different classes of things when they're really just 2 different classes of things. And he talks about how it's so important to shape him taking LSD. Yeah, I mean, it's very NI. It was just consistent with ISTP and third slot NI. They mean to win Wimbledon. Who, the Scots? Are the Scots going to win Wimbledon this year, finally? They have Scottish tennis powerhouse Scott McKilton, who's battling his way to the top of the tennis world, intent on taking Wimbledon back from the English. Is Andy Murray? I thought he was English. Is he Scottish? Don't tell me Andy Murray's been Scottish this whole time and I didn't know it. See, that's how the mainstream media lies to us, MC McPhee. They lied to me. They convinced me that he was English. Okay. Really, they're just trying to oppress you and your people's beautiful heritage. Okay. There are two truisms of the world that will never change no matter how long human history stretches on for. Number one, the Scots will always hate the British. And number two, China will always hate India. Now, much less certain is the conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis, which I'm sure is this close to being resolved. But the bloodshed between the Scots and the Brits will never end. The real people the Chinese actually hate is the Japanese people. The Chinese hate Japanese people so much. You know, like when I was in China, they have shows on Chinese TV called like Death to the Japanese or, you know, Die Japanese Devils Die. Okay, Lawnmower, I've talked to her about it as well. Queen Elizabeth, you are old enough to know how to give a proper hand job. You are rubbing me the wrong way entirely. Not like that, no. Ow, ow. There's not that much play in the skin. You gotta start about down here and go only up this far. Otherwise, you're gonna stretch too much and it's gonna hurt. God, Queen Elizabeth, learn how to give a goddamn hand job, for example, before you claim to be Queen of England. You haven't even mastered the basics. C.J. O'Connell, the Cloud doesn't really think any words are true. He just says them randomly, and his opinion will change tomorrow. It really does taste like girders. How many girders have you tasted? Isn't it possible that the few girders you've tasted weren't exemplary of the class of girders as a whole? Maybe you had rancid or spoiled girders. Maybe proper girders are delicious. Never do them. Never do what? Girders? Don't do girders. You can gird your loins and you can loin your girds, but you can't. A girder is a big steel beam they build skyscrapers out of. What are my thoughts on the 5G conspiracy? I don't even know exactly what it is. I'm not sure what the conspiracy. What's the claims of the conspiracy? Girder is how the Scots make iron brew. What's iron brew? They ferment girders. Oh, it must take quite a while to ferment a girder. Do they pour sugar on top of the girder? Or they just actually require the girder itself to ferment? I would believe that is not unreasonable conclusion for Ayn Rand. The thing is, Ayn Rand is a good example of rightness gone very wrong. You know, it's like leave it to an INTJ to take correctness to the extreme beyond which it is correct. people think 5G is making people ill with higher electromagnetic fields. Well, when did 5G start coming around? How long has it been around for? Okay, but listen here, Lawnmower. And this is important. You have brought it up here before. And when you brought it up, you presented it in a way that made me dismiss it entirely. Because you framed it as an intentional act of some sort by some hidden organization trying to do something. So naturally, I'm going to say, well, that's very unlikely because that's generally not the way the world works. So now what MC McPhee says is that because of the higher electromagnetic fields, people are getting sick. So it's an unintended and accidental consequence of a change in technology. That's vastly more believable than, no, you didn't. You linked it to some shadowy puppet masters. Okay. The reason we know that's not generally how the world works is because, first and foremost, people of the same group are not of the same mindset. So it's like there's a lot of, most conspiracy stuff involves some group of dominant elite who are presumed to agree because they're all very successful. But all the evidence we have shows us in no uncertain terms that level of success and political positions are not correlative like that. So first of all, the whole idea of sort of shadowy groups controlling things is predicated on basically the rational voter hypothesis, even though they're not voters usually, they're not being talked about as voters. It's predicated on the notion that everybody basically acts in their own interest. Now, this is patently false. There's absolutely no reason to consider this to be the case. Almost no political decision making follows this rule. The hypothesis can be tested at any level of socioeconomic demographic. It can be tested anywhere, everywhere, across the board. And the reality is politics comprises an expressive act, not a rational act, for the vast majority of people. Now, granted, ontologizing rationalism is a significant reason why some people will express in some ways rather than others. But nevertheless, we need to remember that politics are expressive of ontology, not acts of utility designed to attain personal interest. So even when it appears people are voting or acting to attain things that are in their interest, they're doing so because they believe the thing that they're working towards is the right thing, regardless. Very rarely do you have wholly corrupted and nihilistic parties who are simply exploitative and are aware they're exploitative and don't seem to care about it. I'm not open to her questions. I just said that, no, I'm interested in hearing about what's going on. And she said that the hypothesis is that increased electromagnetic field activity is causing people to get sick. That's not a completely unreasonable hypothesis. It's possible. The problem is, of course, there's no evidence that people have gotten sick in the last 2 years. You know, there's not any indication that if you take any random sampling of the population, you'd find that they've been more sick over the last 2 years than prior. So, I mean, that's just all there is to it. Like, if it's been 2 years since 5G was launched, and they probably launched it in LA first, I actually have been feeling, or had been feeling, a couple days ago or a day or two ago. I had a stretch of about 3 days of feeling kind of unwell, but prior to that, I was fine, and it's like I've actually felt quite well the last 2 years. It's not consistent with my own personal experience. I've not heard people around me complaining that they're not feeling well or giving me any indication that, boy, the last few months things have been different. I've been feeling really weird. I've not heard any of that from anybody. So all the data we have suggests no, that's not true. In fact, the COVID time was one of the healthiest times in humanity's history, because since people weren't going out and doing stuff and getting injured and stuff, hospitals were completely empty, since obviously COVID wasn't hurting anybody, not significantly. I mean, I know it's been in LA for at least a year. I know I've had it for 6 months or so, at least, maybe a year. So is 5G specifically for cellular, or is that only a matter of cellular, or does it include upgrades to hardwired lines coming in? Because I mean, my internet that I have here in Arcadia using Giggle Fiber is so dramatically better than any internet I've had before. It's crazy. It's like so fast, and I never even have to think about the internet anymore. I used to constantly be fucking with it and fighting with it, and yeah. Which is more likely? My answer to that is aliens are more likely. So far as I'm aware, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but some people believe, if your statement is that some people believe, you're probably not wrong, that the introduction of 5G could be related to new illnesses or even COVID-19, because some believe that it emits higher levels of EMR. Okay, but even if they believe it emits higher levels of EMR, do they have any reason to believe that higher levels of EMR create new illnesses or cause COVID-19 or any of those other claims? I don't think so. So, I think there's a difference with the general 5G and 5G millimeter wave frequency, which is for small spaces, as in a smart city. Okay, so is it just that latter one that's supposedly the problem? I mean, I'm not unwilling to accept the possibility that some new technology has an unintended consequence that causes people to get sick. That's possible. But I would suggest that most sicknesses that one experiences are best explained by they're sick and not something else. I mean, the thing to remember also about this stuff is so many of these conspiracy theories and stuff, and just sort of frames of dominant elites and groups with hidden agendas and stuff like that. I've been hearing them since 2000. Since I got on the internet seriously and started Googling shit. Yeah, and it's always different particulars, but always the same story. Like back then it was this current event and this current event that they were going to utilize to extrapolate those trends into world domination. And then of course, new events happened and that didn't happen. And now all of a sudden, oh, no, it's going to be this event and this event that they're using to attain world domination. And then those things pass from the public consciousness. And, now it's child actors in Hollywood, because that's the hot issue right now. That was never the thing before. But when the thing before turned out not to be a real thing, then we shifted the newest hot button thing. I'm surprised that somehow they're not behind getting rich people into colleges too, since that's a hot button thing. They're behind police brutalities. And it's just like, come on, we can all think better than this. we have to look back and realize that we have a range of data to look at besides just our current data. So it's like we can say, all right, here's some ideas being presented. Were similar ideas being presented 20 years ago? And if so, what sort of predictions or extrapolations were they claiming? And did those things happen? And if not, then why should we think now they just changed their justifications or changed their examples that they're more right this time? I mean, are they just trying random shit, see what sticks? Yeah, well, it's not that we can't, everybody can think to some extent, but it is the case that some types are habituated to interfacing instead or knowing instead. Knowing, I have less of a problem with. Interfacers, I can have problems with because it's like Jeffrey's mom. She fundamentally doesn't view this issue as one in which she determines her course of action ahead of time and is confident or not confident according to the strength of her plan. She views it as one in which she's responsive to what the other people are saying, that it's an interface modality. She said on the phone to me tonight, like, well, of course, I won't know until I hear what they have to say, and then I'll have to decide then what I'm going to say. Like, no, see, this is why you lose. It's because you're going in trying not to lose, assuming that you'll have to be able to adjust on the fly to new information. You have all the information you need right now. Doesn't matter what they say. You can anticipate their responses fall into category meow, meow, meow. You know you have the winning argument in each of those categories. So go in accordingly, certain, and you'll be amazed at what happens. But of course, I can't get somebody to be somebody they're not. She's an interfacer. She doesn't trust deliberate action. Summary on knowers, interfacers, and the others. I think I have a video about that, or a document maybe that I use in a video. Let me see. Knowers. Maybe this one. Let's see. Well, this has some stuff about it. This document here. It's not really, I don't know if this is the one I was looking for or not, but maybe it is. There. Hi, Abraham. I am sexy, aren't I? That's because I took my sexy pills this morning. They make everybody who sees me say, ooh, la, la. Are you Feeny? If you're Feeny, you can come over, I'll hook you up. If you leave now, I'll probably be going to bed within the hour or so. I will let you. If you want, you can come over, I'll hook you up. I mean, it's like, if you're like, man, I'm at it up, but not feeling down, and I want to roll this out the rest of the way, then, go for it. I understand. I rarely say no to anybody because sometimes I need them not to say no to me. Okay, cool, no problem. Did you get not any good use? Let me ask you this, ESFPA. Did you get some good Fortnite play in? Because that's not a bad use. I bet you were really like pew 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 with your Fortnite guns. It's a gun game, right? You shoot people with it in that game. Oh, Call of Duty. Sorry, not Fortnite. Call of Duty. I know Call of Duty is a gun game. I'm not sure about Fortnite. Well, I'm considering trying League of Legends. I hear a lot of people play that game. I downloaded it actually, and it was installing. It took a long time to install, and I got distracted by something else. Getting in 1 versus 6 other situations and winning. That's good job. You were accused of hacking. You're just head hacking. Can we please play a match if you want? I've never played it before, so sure. I mean, I don't know how to do that, but I was planning to go figure it out, and when I get around to figuring it out. Best Aatrox player on the whole server. What's Aatrox? Aatrox. Valvidian? Is it a game? What's Valvidian? Is it a drug? It's a drug. I wouldn't expect much out of Valvidian, Abraham. Get modafinil instead. Am I familiar with the term no cap? No, I'm not familiar with it. I've not heard it before. Or I've heard it, but I don't know what it means. No, what it claims on the website is that it's a safe herbal supplement for people who might otherwise take Adderall and abuse it. It's not gonna do shit, dude. It's just like B12 and ginkgo biloba and other bullshit. You need real drugs. You get modafinil at least. Modafinil is the least druggy of the speed alternatives. That's still real. Per Urban Dictionary, no cap usually means no lie, so it often follows an unbelievable statement or serious question, no cap. You can't find modafinil? You have to order it from like India, but you can successfully order it from overseas, and it would probably be successful. And the other thing is, if you modafinil, because of its schedule, it's basically no bust. Like even if somehow in some way the government were to realize that you were getting modafinil shipped to you and that was technically illegal in some sense, it's like there's not any penalty, and it's not something they enforce because there's not enough of a penalty to attract a prosecutor to even bother, you know? Unlike if you were to successfully find a black market supply of Adderall and you were to have it shipped to you, you'd run the risk of serious criminal penalties if you got caught. That's not the case with modafinil because of its schedule. So it's safe to play around a little bit with ordering it from online. You might lose money, but you're probably not going to get in trouble. Nobody has a problem with the idea that people who don't feel well or have a cold, it would be nice if they wear masks. I don't think anybody disputes that, you know? The thing is, it's not polite of me to always wear gloves on the off chance that I suddenly, lose a fingernail and falls in your soup. If we have no reason to believe my hands specifically pose a threat to other people, then there's no reason to compel me to act as if they do. The problem with the mask issue is, foremost, those in favor of masks lost all the goodwill of intelligent people by ignoring their objections in the first place about the overall arcing thing. Second, the mask advocacy is now linked unavoidably to the false COVID narratives that were pitched. So it's another attempt to force a narrative onto everybody that is a false narrative and that won't sustain scrutiny. Lastly, the thing to note is I don't like wearing a mask. I take it off as soon as I get out of the store. Not a political decision. I don't like it. Okay? There's absolutely no reason to believe my breath is a threat to anybody, even though it might be. So why are you telling me what to do with my face? If your justification for telling me what to do with my face is okay, then my equivalent justification for telling you what to do with your vagina is okay. Do you want me to tell you what to do with your vagina? Do you want me to tell you you can't walk around without a tampon in your vagina because the smell from it might come out and bother us? You might have vagina COVID, and the smell from your vagina might make us all sick. We don't know it won't. So I get to tell you what to do with your vagina. No cap. Of course, we have to understand that we don't simply make a decision about masks. We make a decision about the scope of our authority over other people, and that's as precedent. If you don't like the idea of me telling you what to do with your body parts with the justification that we don't know for sure that that body part won't be a problem, then don't empower me to do so by telling me the same thing about my face. I'm not talking specifically to you, Winston Small. I'm talking to the world. The thing is, people don't understand reciprocal burdens, so they don't get it. They don't get when they advocate in favor of mandatory mask wearing that they're advocating giving up control over their own vaginas. They don't get that they're doing that. But reciprocal burdens means they are. They don't get that they're also arguing against their own ability to drive a car. They don't get it because reciprocal burdens means they are. If I desire to argue that now, it's justified by your logic, not mine. I'm not sure the world's awake. I mean, I think the world is just waking up very, very slowly. And this is part of the waking up process. Right now, the world is in a state of teenager who just woke up. And teenagers who just woke up is like, get out of here, mom! You hate me! Because he's groggy, he's stupid, he's hormonal, he's everything a teenage boy is. And so we understand that the world is where it is because it's just starting to wake up. I'm part of that, If I can manage to fulfill my destiny, I may be a big part of it. But it's hard. It's hard because what I'm offering runs afoul. Sure, it might run afoul of any given individual's ideas about things or not. But what it mostly runs afoul of is the basic frame that everybody seems to be operating through, which is the way to think about politics is agenda first, specific second. And that's wrong. And that's what needs to change. The agenda frame is what compels policy to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And that's the forever history of human civilization. The longer the artificial entity called the state persists, the weaker the state becomes. The individual instance of the state. And the reason is because it can't contain itself. It doesn't have sufficient. It is the exception to natural checks and balances. Non-player character. Is that a good insult? I wouldn't be sure if I was being insulted if I was called a non-player character. Are you saying am I a weak non-player character? Am I a strong one? If I'm not the player, is it really me? I'm not sure if I would be insulted or not if called a non-player character. I certainly wouldn't be insulted if I were called emotional. I am emotional. I wouldn't be insulted if I were called a simp. I would say I don't think that's accurate. And if I were called a heathen, I'd probably just laugh. I just be like, we're good. A heathen. That shit made me talk about my feelings without any interruption of emotions. Congratulations. I was speed talking. Suzanne made fun of you. We had fun, I'm sure. Is Oliver talking? He probably blocked me. Yeah, people use NPC. He's not talking to you. He's talking to me. He says, yeah, people use NPC as an insult. It's basically like calling you a sheep. I see. The insinuation of NPC that the person has an agency is just executing the code given to them by an authority or mainstream media, I think. Oh. Okay, that makes sense. I still think my objection that if I'm not the player, then it's not me, stands as a reasonable objection to considering it insulting. If there's no player there, then you're not even talking about me. Seems like a pretty strong argument. Okay, Sean, I'm not 100% sure. I'm about 75% sure that Stomolicious is an ENFP, not an ENTP. Point one. Point two, what's her warrant for that? She talks about ENFJs and she says that ENFJs have the ability to make everyone feel negative when they are upset. What's her warrant for that? So the thing is this. The difference between an ENTP and an ENFP is as follows. And ENTP and ENFP will both start from the same point. Their actual origin for this claim is that they know an ENFJ who does that. Okay? So that's their actual real source of the idea for them. Now, an ENTP will never present that as a justification for anything. So an ENTP won't go, well, I know it because I have a friend who's an ENFJ, and that's who does that. No, I'm giving a specific thing here, a specific warrant he can check for, okay? So this is what you should look for to see if she's an ENFP or an ENTP. If the justification she gives for why ENFJs are like that is actually SI, not TI. In other words, it's examples or personal experience and not logical framework or reasoning, then she's actually an ENFP. But yeah, well, warrant is the same. It means the same thing as it does when you're talking about an arrest warrant. An arrest warrant is a reason that legitimizes the arrest. A search warrant is a reason that legitimizes the search. An argument's warrant is the reason why the claim has weight to it rather than is unsubstantiated. Well, I mean, look, but they made it. The thing is, it's true that thanks ESFJ, it's true that people justifying grand truths through personal experience is being somewhat myopic, but it's possible to give examples and have that be a legitimate warrant for some kinds of arguments. So if I'm trying to prove the statement that compulsory voting doesn't necessarily link to increased democratization, I would need only give an example. I would need only say that here's a totalitarian regime like North Korea that has compulsory voting. And if, in fact, the claim here, the compulsory voting necessarily leads to increased democratization, were true, then we'd see a more democratic North Korea today than we did 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And that's not the case. So it disproves definitively the statement that compulsory voting necessarily increases democratization. So in that case, an example is fine. But in the instance of the claim where she says ENFJs can make everybody feel bad when they're feeling bad or something like that, then an example like that would not be adequate as a justification. An ENFP is likely to make the same kind of example-y justifications regardless of whether the claim is warranted by an example. Some are warranted by examples and some aren't. Curious Kyra, by the way, ESFJ, I'm pretty sure just had a misfired joke that he didn't actually mean to be mean. He's not. I know you're accustomed to some people actually being mean to you. I think ESFJ is not trying to be. He's just having some slips and falls here. He's an ESFJ and a very nice guy, and he's not actually mean. So I would not expect him to be mean to you at all. Okay, well, here, Curious Kyra, let me do this. I'm going to officially unfuck your apology. There. No, he is. He's been up too long. He hasn't slept in a while. Let me see Nicholas Watson's quote. What does it say? It is usually futile to try to talk facts and analysis to people who are enjoying a sense of moral superiority in their ignorance. Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell is an NPC. I mean, I don't like those kind of statements because I believe in the power of discourse. My personal belief is that individuals are responsible for their own emotional state, and I just don't want to feel like it's my ENFJ manipulation is causing bad vibes. I mean, there's an oddly contradictory reality here, Sean, which is your ability to make people feel good proves that, in fact, to a certain extent, you can take some responsibility over. Whether you're responsible for or not, liable is another question, but you can take responsibility over somebody's emotional state. You can certainly successfully or comfort somebody, or you could mishandle something and make them feel even worse, or you could intentionally make them feel worse or something like that. So we definitely have the power to intend to impact people's emotions, and we have the power to assess whether we have successfully done so or not. Oliver Linehan says, we have a bit of a crisis here. The people in the chat can't seem to see that I am the real Eric Strauss. That's quite a crisis. Is everyone going to start chanting, I am Eric Strauss? No, Oliver Linehan's an imposter. Nicholas Watson is the real Eric Strauss. I just want to know where I stand so I'm not the only one doing it. Well, you stand where Eric Strauss stands. Okay? People feeling good is kind of them embracing my vibe. It feels like they have a choice or it's not a wrong. Okay, so in that case, you're not really concerned about whether or not you have impacted people's feelings, but whether or not you've impacted them positively or negatively. And from my perspective, the question of whether or not you've impacted them positively or negatively is not the same as the question of whether you've done a good thing or a bad thing, because that would depend on what they did to incur the negativity from you. If they actually did something that's wrong and you were shaming them for their wrongdoing and made them feel bad, then that's a good thing to do because it's the appropriate response to actual wrongdoing. Lawnmower, here's the crazy truth of the matter. Kyra is Cloud, and you are running Fox. If I have a good impact, I'm not trying to take credit. If I impact them negatively, I'm more critical of my role. Well, sure. But I mean, the thing about taking credit implies some sort of public announcement of I'm responsible for it. Whereas taking responsibility would be a private acknowledgement that you have some responsibility for it without having to worry about the FE considerations of a public announcement of taking credit. So the reason you don't want to take credit has to do with how taking credit impacts other people in your relationship with them. So if you don't take credit out loud, then it doesn't matter. If you could be anywhere on C.S. Joseph's whiteboard, where would you be? Oh my God, how many times have I thought about this question? I keep going back and forth. It's either upper left-hand corner or lower right-hand corner. I know that sounds weird. It's like they're in the opposite spots, but I could either be next to C.S. Joseph's hip or kind of closer to his shoulder. Either way, it'd be dreamy. If I could just spend all day long with C.S. Joseph, I could watch his videos all day long. He's got plenty of them. Maybe I should start doing it. Apologizing on the internet is not a way of being polite. It's an admission of guilt. That's kind of true. I mean, I see it as always an admission of guilt. I don't apologize unless I did something wrong. Or unless it's a very casual apology like, oh, sorry, I forgot. I was going to get you a drink too, or something like that, then fine. But if there's a point in dispute, then my casual polite sorries go off. I like C.S. Joseph dressed only in foliage, best of all. And I just pluck those leaves one at a time. Just pluck. You get to see a little bit of CS underneath there. It's like eating sushi off of a naked model. It just goes around in the night and feeds off people's mental energy. Holding hands, walking down the beach at sunset, Eric and C.S. Joseph. You know what I mean? I tell you, if somehow C.S. Joseph and I could work together long enough to take that picture on the beach and make that a thumbnail of a video, just have that picture. There's not even any words on the thumbnail. Have it not quite front angle, not quite fully lit, so it's pretty clear that it's me and C.S. Joseph, but you can't really all the way tell in the thumbnail. That video would get a shit ton of views, even if we weren't together on the video, just because of the thumbnail. You know, I bet you. I'd be down if somehow C.S. Joseph and I could secretly pull off just meeting at a beach, not even talking to each other, but just holding hands for 30 seconds to take a picture of us, and then be like, "See you later, asswipe," to each other. I would totally do it. I could do a deep fake. I have some sense of what that means, but I think there's probably more meaning to it than I know. I mean, I'm not sure what a deep fake is exactly. You mean like do a Photoshop picture of me and C.S. Joseph and really pretending like it's true or something? Oh. C.J. O'Connell. I'm going to agree with Lawnmower here. You want to stay in a sober mindset. And the best way to do that is to smoke some weed. Oh, that's true. I forget. I forget everybody's age. If you're a kid, dude, don't smoke weed. I'm just joking around anyway. I will tell all the young people out there who have not started smoking weed yet or smoking cigarettes, there's no reason to start. There's absolutely no reason to start. If you're one of those persons who's destined to get into drugs and like there was no way to stop me from birth. Before I did drugs ever, I was already intoxicating myself by other means, like hyperventilating and standing up very fast and spinning around in a circle. And it's like I hated that one though. It's like there were other. I liked head rushes. I didn't like feeling dizzy. So, and it's just like before I even knew enough to know what it was, I was seeking a head change. The first time I ever tasted alcohol, I was the drunkest person at the Thanksgiving event, which was a family event. It was in seventh grade. I mean, not the first time I ever tasted it, but the first time I ever was allowed to have a glass of wine, I managed to drink that one and refill it multiple times. Like, it's just like instantly, just like, congratulations, Eric, you are a drug addict. He tried to sniff rubber cement glue. It was non-toxic. Tried to get high sniffing Elmer's glue. Man, that shit is non-toxic. I tell you. I very much still smell the glue smell, but I'm not high at all. Yeah, Lawnmower, one thing that I've always liked the smell of is gasoline. When I was a kid, I like wanted to go smell the gasoline pump, but my parents said it's bad for you, so I didn't do it. But imagine being the first caveman to discover getting high. The thing is, back in caveman times, before humans started breeding pot to be more stony, it was probably pretty weak, is my guess. But if they ate psychedelic mushrooms, of course, like you can imagine cavemen sometimes having a lean, having sort of a lean diet's indications, which is to say, if they caught fish on one day, they just ate a bunch of fish. That's all they had. They didn't have like side dishes, probably. So, you can imagine them some tribe of Neanderthals or cavemen or whatever happening upon a large patch of mushrooms and filling up on them for dinner. Can you imagine like a grown man being very hungry and eating his fill of mushrooms? That'd be like he'd eat like probably at least a couple of full ounces, probably. And he'd definitely trip balls. So if you didn't know that the mushrooms you were eating were psychedelic, and you assumed they were safe to eat for some reason, and you ate a bunch of them not knowing, certainly could trip way too hard, possibly. Of course, the kind of mushrooms that make you trip out kind of taste like poop a little bit. So I'm not sure if people were really eager to eat them. The, the toad looking thing. you know, well, that's just my licking toad. Toad licking. I gotta Google it. I'm not even gonna speak about it until I Google it again. I've looked it up before, but I forget what I read about it. Undoubtedly, one of the strangest things people have done to elicit a recreational high is to lick a toad, in particular the cane toad and Colorado River toad, which produce the chemical 5-methoxy-N dimethyltryptamine. What makes the amphibious river toad dangerous to dogs is that the glands behind its eyes secrete a white poison that spreads in the mouth of would-be predators, including curious dogs. In New Mexico and California, the species, the catching or possessing of one of these frogs is illegal because in New Mexico they're threatened, and because in California they're endangered. So it has nothing to do with them. The illegality of catching them has nothing to do with nothing to do with licking them. This one is a link to the Arizona Addiction Recovery Center toad licking trend. Are you seriously telling me? There's somebody out there looking for treatment for a toad licking addiction. I, I just can't. I just can't stop licking this toad. It's just like, Put the toad down. No, I can't. I can't stop licking this fucking toad. It's so delicious. Oh. While the chemical makes the toads unpalatable to predators, in human it triggers the release of serotonin, a feel-good substance in the brain, which can also produce powerful hallucinations. So anyway, that white substance they emit to dissuade predators is the thing that you're supposed to lick, I guess. By the way, in case you didn't know, earwigs don't really burrow into your ears. Do you know that polar bears don't eat penguins? Huh. Because all the penguins are in the southern hemisphere, whereas polar bears are in the northern hemisphere. What would happen if you took some penguins up to the North Pole? Would they start a colony up there? Maybe we should do that. It'd give the polar bears more to eat. Well, some newts poke their rib bones through their skin as a means to protect themselves from predators. And then after the predator goes away, they have the did I say amphetamines? I meant to say amphibians, newts. Let's, in general, try to avoid the always and nevers in contexts like that. I'm going to as well. I don't always. I mean, I know with all my shit, I'm nobody to talk, right? I do that shit too. But no, see, lawnmower, you're just stop. Just stop. She was not attacking you. I don't assume bad things, which you sometimes do, lawnmower, no offense, is not attacking you. If you view that as attacking you, rather than what it clearly is, politely and reasonably defending herself with intentionally not trying to attack you, then you are not being remotely objective in your calculation. Shadows are rounded. No, you're not being attacked. You're being corrected by me. And she certainly is not attacking you or correcting you, even really. She's just stating that she doesn't necessarily agree with you. Yeah, you need to stop, dude. Seriously, I'm getting complaints. Yeah, a bunch of squawk about what did I do? Yeah. Like I should be more fair or something. You know. The sun should get smaller and smaller when going down, but it stays the same size. No, it gets bigger and bigger. Cloud, have you ever watched the sunset? I mean, Right. Just like, because if you have imagine if you have a magnifying glass that's curved like this, but on the inside, it's all magnifying glass all the way down, but the inside goes like this. Well, to get maximal magnification, you got to come from this angle, right? Because that way you go through the most magnifying glass. That's called the atmosphere. And that's why it gets bigger, not smaller, as it sets. No, I thought at first he just probably misspoke, but then I realized that he's it's because he's saying that because the sun is further away when it's going down from where you're standing, that it should look smaller. Except you have to look at the scale of both of the things. So the amount farther away as compared to the whole distance is very, very small. Whereas the amount of difference between the amount of magnifying glass from here and here is much larger in terms of respective scale to each other. So that's why that's why it is the case that even though the sun is further away from us when it is closest to setting, it still looks bigger because the magnification impact is necessarily of much greater significance within the system of itself than the distance is within the system of itself. You see what I'm saying? Well, he's not even saying he's advocating it. He's actually saying, here's what they say, but really it's yeah. But yes, it does in real life stay actually the same size, but it appears to be larger when it's lower on the horizon because of the magnification reason I explained. And you are correct that there is some impact on the appearance of it in smallificationalizing, but that's offset by and outweighed by the concurrent magnification impacts so that it still looks overall larger. Well, Cloud, I mean, the thing is, look, if you're at the carnival and there's a guy who was standing there going, winner, 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 everyone a winner, everybody wins, everyone a winner, simple game, easy game, everybody wins, guaranteed to win, everybody a winner, 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 winner. Don't even bother going in there and on the assumption that I'm gonna win now because this guy's standing out here saying winner, winner, winner. And then realize, oh my God, and come out that, guys, you won't believe it. This is what happened. I went in there and he was like, winner, 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 winner. Everybody wins. I win every time. Your turn, sir. Step right up to do your thing. I went in there, I spun the thing, and you lose. That's what happened. And we're like, shocking, Cloud, shocking. You mean that carny huckster isn't legitimate? Shocking. Guys, I gotta tell you something. You remember that radio broadcast when they were broadcasting as the aliens were landing and everything? That War of the Worlds broadcast? You know what? That was bullshit. There weren't really aliens there. I know, I'm as shocked as anybody. Yeah, it's true. I just found this out. I just realized that's like, hold on a second. I think that might have been bullshit. Cloud, do you remember being in here advocating in favor of flat earth theories with equal passion and certainty on previous occasions? Do you recall on those occasions coming in here and with just as much certainty and passion as you are currently arguing against flat earth theory, arguing in favor of it? Do you recall those instances? I do. Cloud, you're not the devil's advocate because even the devil can't hold contradictory positions all the time without being right some of the time. You're now advocating hollow earth. I see. Why is the earth hollow now? Because we need some place to hide our shit? Because we need to have a stash hole for our weed as we're doing intergalactic traveling in the earth. Velociraptor Earth theory is the only legitimate theory about the Earth's geometry. I'm very fascinated. What is Velociraptor Earth theory? I want to come up with some urban legend theories and see. I just can't do it because I just don't trust people. Even if I don't try hard, I'm concerned that they're actually gonna see it spit back to me as gospel truth. I shit you not. I am scared. Like the safest kind of bullshit I can make up are my life events on Facebook, which is things like on Facebook in my life events. If you go back through my Facebook timeline, you will discover some interesting things about me, including that I'm the one who first discovered the moon. It existed, that there was a moon. I am also the one who invented French. I jumped over the Grand Canyon at the age of 1 day old. All right. Let me see if your argument against this is great. No, Cloud, I so appreciate this. This has got to be the first time, I think, that you've ever asked me this kind of question. I will be happy to tell you the answer. Did your argument against flat Earth make sense? Let me see what you said exactly. Okay, so you said just by observing the size of the sun, your basic argument is that the cloud is shrinking as it moves further away from us, but you can disprove that by looking at the sunset, right? I think this is like one of the first things you said. But in real life, it stays the same. Actually, like it looks bigger as it gets lower in the sunset, though. But other than that, I think your argument is correct to the extent that if, in fact, flat earthers have the fundamental predicate of their flat earth theory that this issue of sun appearance size being determinant on the matter, then then yes, you would have successfully negated it. But if they don't say that issue is determinate, that somehow, if they lose that point, they can still win the round. Well, it depends what their perspective. It depends how they argue that. I'm not sure how they argue that. What are you doing up at this wee hour? Who, me? Or Cloud or me? I mean, the thing is, no, Cloud's not arguing in favor of that. Cloud is arguing against that. I study flat Earth model a lot. It won't work because of my argument. Okay. I mean, is the flat Earth model consistent within itself? Would be the most important question then. So if in fact it is consistent within itself, in other words, that appearance of the sun thing is axiomatic, then sure, you would successfully disprove it. If I'd have to see how the model's put together. Well, it depends, Lawnmower. It may not be. It may be actually determinate. Depending on how their arguments put together, Cloud may be completely right. Maybe simply establishing that the sun is larger as it sets is sufficient to defeat their entire thing. Shit does fall apart sometimes when you knock one thing out, but I don't know because I don't know adequately what they're arguing. So Cloud has successfully negated that argument, but he has not successfully established that what negating that argument does under their framework. So the FE model and Hollow Earth model, I mean, you are familiar with it. Okay, well, I mean, I don't know whether that would disprove their arguments or not. Yeah, I know it disproves the one component, the one argument he says. In other words, if in fact they claim the sun gets smaller as it reaches the horizon, then the fact that it gets larger would disprove that. No, Cloud, I'm not arguing in favor of the flat Earth thing. You didn't ask me that question. You didn't ask me whether the Earth was flat. You asked me whether your rebuttal was good. And I told you, well, it does rebut the claim that the sun gets smaller going down. But how effectively it rebuts their whole thing, I have to actually see what their arguments are. They may or may not have made arguments that are predicated on that notion. Since you didn't clearly establish what their arguments were, besides the claim that you rebutted, I don't really know. I'm glad you mentioned George Carlin, CJ O'Connell. I'm trying to get into a lifestyle where, I take a big rip off of a joint or something and then put it away on some George Carlin waves. The reason I'm glad you mentioned George Carlin is because he's somebody that I don't like historically. I don't think he's particularly funny, and I always kind of feel like, yeah. But regardless, I did like his take a shit joke that he had, which is, ooh, I gotta take a shit. We're not gonna take one of mine. I only got 3 left, and the weekend's coming up. Oh, that's a pretty funny joke, But in general, yeah, I agree with you about the influential part, obviously, and probably he was clever, but yeah, right. So anyway, well done, Oliver Whitehead. Well done, sir. So, what was I talking about? Before Oliver Linehan crashed my brain. Oh, George Carlin. So today I read an article about George Carlin on ESPN, and I found it made me proud to be like. I've always sort of acknowledged, I guess, that he's most likely an EHP, one of the various EHPs that I just don't like, which there is more often for ENTPs is the case than not, probably, if they're public figures, because I see them as too much stepping on my toes, you know. But when I read this thing today, I said, now that's an ENTP's reasoning here. It's like, okay, so the guy, I'll read this part out loud. To be specific, I was a stage production assistant for the George Carlin Show, a 1994 sitcom that ran on Fox. So technically, I was the assistant to George Carlin and the rest of the cast. But George was the star, and his name was in the title. So it was made clear to me by my bosses that my primary and even my secondary duty was taking care of George and anything he needed anytime he needed it. I answered the stage phone for him. George didn't have a cell phone back then. I got meals for him. I would drive scripts to his house, and then I would drive George's handwritten notes on scripts. George preferred to write things out longhand, and if he used email back then, I never saw it, and bring them back to the writer's room, among many other various tasks, all of them with the sole purpose of making George's life easier. I absolutely loved working for him. As kind and gentle a guy as you'd ever want to meet. Someone, if you didn't know who he was, you'd never guess was a living legend. The exact opposite of his onstage persona. He was always positive, not angry, soft-spoken and unassuming. He was the first guy on the set every morning and the last guy to leave. And maybe because I spent a lot of time with him every day, or more likely just because he was an awesome human, that's just how he was. He seemed to take a unique interest in me. He asked about me, my life, my ambitions, even asked my opinion of jokes or notes he had on scripts when I would pick them up. The first year, one of my best friends and his then girlfriend, now wife, came out to visit me in Los Angeles. Now, I'm a grunt, right? Seriously, I'm the lowest rung of the ladder on this show, as low as you can get. But of course, I want to show off my big Hollywood career to my friend. So I wanted to bring them to a taping of the show. Usually, George had a few errands he needed me to handle after filming. So I go to George that afternoon. I ask if he could tell me whatever he needed me to do after the show now so I could take care of it before the show, because I had some guests coming to the show that night and wanted to show them around after the set afterwards. He says, sure, give me a few small things and he gave me a few small things to handle, and that's that. Okay, so now it's after the show, and we're walking around the stage looking at the sets and cameras. I'm trying to act like I know what I'm talking about when suddenly George comes up to me. Matthew, are these your friends from back home? I'm stunned. Oh, yeah, Sean and Cindy, George Carlin. George, Sean, and Cindy. George has a big smile, extends his hands, and gives them the big sell. We couldn't do the show without Matthew. I consult him every day. He's a rising star here, and he's only going to get bigger. We all love him. Again, I'm a grunt. Last guy listed on the call sheet, but you wouldn't know from George. Seriously, he waves to the set. None of this happens without Matthew, George says to my friends. He then hands them each a signed copy of the script from that night's episode and motions them to come close. Come on, let's take a picture. He then asks what else they've done since they've been in LA and how they met, and he does what George does, which is make them feel special and unique. And as George leaves, my friends floating on air, smiling wide and looking at me much more impressed than they were 10 minutes ago. Now, this is the part that I really want to get to, though, here. Is his explanation. I saw firsthand how many people wanted a picture with him. He'd be on his way to a meeting, to his car, to leave for the day, hell, to the bathroom, and it was a constant stream of folks wanting autographs and pictures. But he always stopped, chatted, took the picture. I mentioned this, to which he replied something I've never forgotten. This is such an ENTP explanation. It just makes me feel instant fondness for Carlin. I always do it, no matter what. Look, it's 30 seconds out of my life. And now these people had a good experience. And the next time my name comes up, for the rest of their lives, they'll say, yeah, I met Carlin once. He was nice. I'd much rather that than a lifetime of, yeah, I bought all that guy's albums, and then he wouldn't even sign my hat. That guy was a jerk. 30 seconds of my time for a lifetime fan, I'll make that deal every time. It's so calculating a reason to be nice, But it also suggests to me that he's somebody who just really, oh yeah, I have a hole in my pants right in my crotch. I'm wearing underwear though, so fortunately I'm wearing underwear. So anyway, I like that story because it makes me feel very like kind of emo, like FE, like oh or whatever, or FI, what we're gonna call that. I don't know. And then when you read his explanation, it just makes me laugh. It's like that's great, you know. I think the reality is George Carlin did that because it continued to be gratifying to him to see people happy to see him, and for him to be able to make them happy so easily because he's third slot FE, you know. And and I've often thought it's like if you don't become successful too soon, if you become successful at the right moment as an ENTP, it's perfect because it's almost like ENTPs can't be okay until they have a certain amount of fame or something. Like not necessarily fame, but attention. We need it. Hey, Cloud, you take that back. People in NASA never lie. That's why it's called NASA. Never said alternative truth. That's what it stands for. Alternative truth being a euphemism for lie, of course. Just like my dick's a euphemism for your mom's face. Really? Well, if by better you mean catastrophically worse, then yes. Bill Nye, the science guy, is a piece of old and rancid pie. No reason, Nye, to hear him lie. For this fry guy we call Bill Nye is neither I nor I drew a blank. So I guess you win, Cloud. I couldn't think of a 3-syllable word off the top of my head with that rhythmic pattern that ends with I. Gotta be one. Shouldn't be that difficult. Butterfly. Butterfly. There's one. God, took me that long to come up with butterfly. A 3-syllable word with that rhythmic pattern with that ends with an I syllable. What's another one what's another word that's 3 syllables with manana as the rhythmic pattern that ends rhyming with I? Fish fry is 2 words, 2 syllables. Or if you include the second thing, rat eye, syllabi. Syllabi, there you go. There's another one. That's a good one. 5 points, Mark. 5 points. I was only going to give you 3, then I said, no, you're being cheap and kind of Haiti because it deserves a full 5 points. Octopi, also a good one. Nice, Winston's mom. Multiple octopuses are called octopi. Yavapai? I don't know what that is. Tiger's eye. How about that? Tiger's eye is a kind of stone. Oh, Yavapai is the Indian tribe? Okay. Qualify. Qualify is a good one. Proxima Centauri? Okay, Centauri is also just the plural of centaur. So, I mean, I think probably most people say centaurs, but probably technically Centauri is the plural. A great deluge. Hey, watch out, everybody. A great deluge is coming. Simplify. Good. I see we're gathering together our army of words for this poem. Exemplify. Nice. Nice one, Zaylen Black. Stupefy. Stupefy is one for sure. Satisfy. Sissify. I don't want you to sissify this shit, you know. I like the verb sissify and the noun form of it, sissification. You know, I oppose the sissification of America. And at the same time, you know, I'm kind of a big supporter of the right to be a sissy, you know. So I don't know. It's kind of a tough question. I don't like public policy to be nanny-ish, but I do like individuals to be caring towards each other. Cheesify. Yeah. You can cheesify anything simply by pouring cheese on it. My third eye. Apple pie. Amplify. I said stupefy already. Truth and lie. Resupply. Occupy. Did we say occupy already? Classify. Did we say classify? Spotify. There's a lot of fies. Multiply. Okay. Ratify is a good one. Ratify is a good one for sure. If I were going to pick one to use, I'd probably use ratify because it gives you the most options coming out of the verb, right? That's a strong verb to come out of the corner with. It's like if you're writing a sentence or something or a poem like that, you get to that, you need one of those things. And you land on ratify. All of a sudden, the root in front of you both clarifies, becomes less vague, and also kind of branches like, oh, we've got these sets of possibilities now. I mean, I definitely go with the verb, one of the verbs. Crucify is a juicy one as well. Ratify, qualify, sanctify. Mike Pence's fly. Boy, I have heard the main thing I've heard about the debate. My dad talked to codify is a great one. We could put codify up there on the list of ones that suggest lots of. Deify is a good one too. Those are good ones. So, can everybody please just remember this? Next time you want to start saying that Marx and the ESTJ Mark, can you remember this next time you want to start saying you're an INFJ? You're beating me at this game. Okay? That's the truth of the matter. We were kind of neck and neck for a while. At this point, you pulled ahead. Cobra Kai. That's a good one. Jenner Jor Tor. Jenner Georger Tur. Is that Genexial? Are you the same person? No, it's not, but no, it's not too shabby. True. It's not that eager and robust, though. I will, Nicholas. I will clarify. I'll bring clarity where there's currently obscurity. I will bring clearness where there's currently mud. I will clarify what is currently unclear. I know nothing about Hinduism. Different reasons, Curious Kyra. Different reasons. So, Lawnmower is making an effort to. I mean, why do they argue with each other? Well, it's still same answer to the question. Cloud's answer is the answer he's giving there is true. That's why Cloud does it. Most of the time when people tell you that, it's bullshit. They're just they just run out of justification, so they're just trying to save face. For Cloud, that's the truth. That's why he does it. It's fun for him. Lawnmower, it depends on who he's arguing with as to why he's arguing with him to some extent. But I would also say that Lawnmower is evolving, and this is part of his evolution. Whereas, I'm sure Cloud's evolving too, but this is less part of his evolution. He's probably going not to change much in this particular area, I would suspect. Although, I want to give Cloud's older self credit, as I suggest everybody give their older selves credit. People do have the capacity to change and grow, and certainly there are young people habits that one jettisons as one grows older and decides that they maybe aren't as rewarding as they once were, or something. Thanks, Cloud. Sometimes I feel pretty emotionally where I'm trying to. It's like when I say I see this part of Lawnmower's evolution, I see my relationship with Lawnmower and the channel's relationship with them as part of my evolution as well. I genuinely want to improve the way that no, not Housemark. That's not the case. It's definitely not the case. Sorry. I mean, Winston's mom is NI-polar, and NI-dom, and she only came up with like 2 of them or 1 of them or something. Anyway, not that that's definitive. Mark just likes to keep in his bag of things that might get talked about what his type is. So he reserves the right to deny his ENTP hood to provoke people into discussing his type. You guys say you agree that could be either NI or NE, but look at how dramatically he outscored everybody else in terms of number of words and disparateness of words, and how he persisted in coming up with new ones after I stopped even, and seemed to take, before we talked about what it meant at all, when he wasn't probably thinking explicitly about how it was going to play out as an indication about his type. He was acting just like it needed to be. And as soon as the subject comes up, all of a sudden, well, now that it's conscious and I'm aware of it, wow, who knows what that means? When the rivers flooded, the cultures felt like their entire world was flooding since they didn't have contact outside of their immediate region. Morge, you haven't heard about the recently uncovered ancient Greek satellite? Yeah, actually, they had a primitive form of satellite communications back in the ancient world. It was made out of mud bricks, and the electronics gear. It was that old school like Babylon battery. A big barrel of something with something else in some wires and shit. And electricity. The thing was, it was 0.1 G technology. So it took like 6 weeks for data to get from the satellite back down to Earth. But they did actually have pictures, and the whole world was covered in water. Unfortunately, all the people who could access those pictures died in the flood because Noah and his wife and those animals weren't part of the prehistoric satellite advisory committee. So it wasn't until recently when they uncovered an archaeological dig in space, in the vacuum of space, they uncovered the remains of this early ancient world technology that proves that in the ancient world, people successfully sent into outer space a satellite and had communication from the satellite to the ground and back again. I'm as shocked to hear it as everybody else. And yes, they found the pictures. They had yet to be developed. It was on a very old kind of film, a very old technology, obviously. It's an early form of photography in which an image is imprinted on parchment, but the development process, they weren't really, they weren't sure at first what it was going to require to develop these pictures, these negatives. They were clearly negatives, though, parchment negatives. So they tried a regular darkroom technique, and it just so happened that the strategy for developing those parchment pictures and the strategy for developing modern pictures, it actually used exactly the same strategy. It's just that the ancient world used naturally occurring instances of those chemicals, and they just waited until night to develop them. They didn't have any dark rooms. That was the big difference. And in fact, it would sometimes ruin the pictures if they did it on a full moon. So they sometimes wait till night and also go inside. And if you recall, in the ancient world, one of the big differences is they didn't have electric lights like they do nowadays. And even the candles would refuse to light after 11 p.m. So it would be really dark some nights. Now, okay, some people say that ancient world satellite is really proof of extraterrestrial involvement on Earth thousands of years ago. But I say, no, human ingenuity is responsible for this. The technology existed back in the day, right? The Parthian battery. It's like buckets of liquid with some stuff in it, and copper, and bada bing, bada boom, electricity. The crazy thing, though, is, it's long since rotted away, of course, but apparently the satellite communicated back to Earth by wires that were connected all the way from the satellite down to Babylon. And it was challenging because, of course, the scientists had to chase the end of the wires around the world at very high speeds if they wanted to get the data or communicate with the satellites. Do you guys know this? Are you learning this for the first time? I can't believe you guys have never heard of this before. Sure, you've heard of this, right? It's been in the news lately. Earth's size and shape is the business of scientists. We others only need to believe. We don't need to know. So ball Earth theory is not an important issue for us. Oh, it's an important issue for me. I am currently planning on stashing my weed in the middle of the Earth when we do our galactic traveling. If it's not hollow, I'm never going to be able to stash my weed there. But Morridge, did you know about what I'm talking about? Did you realize that there exist these ancient papyrus pictures of the flood? No, you can actually see the ark in some of the pictures too. It was real. And the telephoto lens technology in the ancient world was remarkably good. You can see a lot of detail. You can actually see what Noah's wife's haircut looked like. It was kind of like the Rachel. Remember that haircut? Kind of like that. Yeah, it's true. She's standing right next to a giraffe. But fortunately, the giraffe was on the other side of her, so not on this side, or else we wouldn't have been able to see her in the photo. The other interesting thing is you can't see the second giraffe. And it doesn't appear like there's enough room between the deck and the bottom for the giraffe to fit underneath. But, how could it be hiding on top? But there must be two of them. Where's that missing giraffe? That spawned a lot of conspiracy theories. That is really, some people say that Noah engaged in a sin of bestiality with that second giraffe, and that's why their boat crashed. I think it's wild speculation, but was Greek fire for real? Yeah, absolutely. When the Greeks were around in the ancient world, they had a lot of different powers. One of them was called Greek fire. And everybody knew that that you didn't want to challenge the Greeks because their dance troupe would come out and confuse your soldiers, basically. Greek fire was the name of the Athenians dance troupe, okay? And it was made up of muscular young men in loincloths exclusively, doing, martial dances, they called them. But as you can guess from the name, the actual choreography of Greek fire, the award-winning ancient world dance troupe, it was very homoerotic. And for non-Greeks, that could, at the time, people weren't especially open-minded. The Trojans, for example, they used some homophobic slurs. And then the Greeks naturally accused them of ontological assault. And the Trojans didn't know what to do because they thought they were there to fight a war. So, yeah. And with that technology, in other words, homoerotic choreographed dance troupes, lost after Greece collapsed. Yeah, it was lost for many centuries until late in the Middle Ages. St. Thomas Aquinas rediscovered it when he started his own dance troupe of Middle Ages monks. He called it Roman fire first, then he eventually changed the name to fire. He thought that was snappier. Then he changed it to Aquinas's fire, which he stuck with, even though everybody said it was the worst of the three names. His ego just sort of displaced his intuition. Sometimes school was just so confusing. Right. Like, did you guys know any of this before I started telling it to you? I don't think you did. Plato is the source for Atlantis. It all traces back to him. He was known for talking about the power of myths. You wouldn't be surprised if we made it all. Well, he made up all kinds of stuff. It's true. You know, he made up the first cross the road joke. It wasn't a chicken. It was a grouse, but same basic concept. And it's lasted all through the ages. That was Plato. That's Plato's genius in a nutshell right there. Plato was the first person to approach a potential mating prospect with, "Hey, sup." First person ever to do that. That was Plato. He invented that. And it was lost. It was lost for millennia until we rediscovered it recently. Everything we know now, they knew in the ancient world and did better than we do it now. You know, now we have GPS. In the ancient world, they had complicated things. What are they called? What are those things called? What are those things called? The sextants. Sextants, right? Yeah, they had sextants. That's a very, very complicated way of. I mean, the thing is, basically, ancient world technology, it didn't really account for the user experience. So they hadn't yet figured out how to make the sextant tell you where you were by just going, "What longitude am I at right now, sextant?" Which is what we can do now, which is pretty great, you know. You really had to step up as a technology user back in the ancient world. Their technology, it was very much a matter of the laity and the intellects, you know. The Great Flood happened, so the ice wall needed to be erected to save the Night King and the White Walkers, but Gilgamesh came and summoned the nine-tailed fox. That's quite a mishmash of myths. I like that. A lot of different myths there. Star Wars is basically Gnosticism combined with Buddhism. No, it's not. It's the Force. It's its own thing. It's Star Wars religion. Jediism. Force is totally its own thing. Neither Buddhists nor whatever the other thing you said there have lightsabers. It's hard to deny that simple fact. An astronomer sketched canals on the moon, but it was just lines in the telescope. Oh, that's unfortunate for him. Okay, I'm done. I'm gonna go to bed. I'm tired. That's because you had superpowers. Naturally, if you have them, you're gonna try them out. Curious cover. You're not just gonna hang around school when you can fly. Morage, I have been teaching you the history of the ancient world, and you're still pretending like it's not true. I've already explained to you. They had satellites back then. We proved it. The flood was real. Good night. I love you all.